Yes, we are recording. Okay.
It's Maria.
Yes, Maria.
Thank you for clarifying that, because I'm the group's vendor liaison. It was a wonderful program, and I used to get so many vendors to send us serial numbers to review their products, and we would demo them at a group meeting. But you're right, I didn't know what was happening, that I couldn't get anybody to send me anything to review. So now I know. So thanks for that. I think the vendor liaison title is I don't know. I don't know that I should even keep it, because now I guess we're just doing through the vendor offers. That's about it. And you take care of that piece. We have the codes there, and they can, I don't know, purchase the products, but we don't get a chance to review it before, you know. Any ideas beyond that? Should we keep vendor liaison? I mean, it's not doing very good. Not very useful anymore, is what I'm trying to say.
It is more and more difficult all the time. Don't give up. Persistence does pay off, but sometimes it requires 2 and 3 contacts in order to get their attention.
Okay. Do you connect with press? Do you contact them via press or via, what would you suggest the contact to a company be?
I always contact the sales department.
Sales department? Okay, thank
Yes.
you. Okay.
Any other questions? Martin?
Do you know Jeff Gammett at all? Have you come across Jeff?
I do not.
No. Okay. Yes. He works with Text Expander, and he's provided AWUGU with a discount for their software, which is basically expansion software for text input and stuff like that. I'd be happy to send you his details if you would like to contact him about extending that maybe to other groups other than AWUGU.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Please either email that or post it on the chat room, if you would, Martin.
Sure.
Dale?
Yes, I'm getting the emails from you, but I'm not getting the group bulletin that you were covering earlier. How do I get that fixed?
I'm sorry, you were breaking up on me, Dale. Could you repeat?
I get the emails directly from you, but I'm not receiving the group bulletin that you covered earlier.
Oh, you're not receiving the bulletin?
Yeah, how do I fix that?
Sandy, would you like to answer that? Sandy is the editor of the bulletin.
I'll put my email address in the chat here, and then send anybody who's interested the way to subscribe to the bulletin.
Thank you.
Easy peasy.
Okay, David?
I just want to mention about Jeff Gammett. He works for Smile Software and also used to work for the Mac Observer. So he's definitely a good resource for getting licensing through Smile Software.
Oh, good. Could you paste his contact information on the chat room? Or send it to me and I can share it. That'd be good. Any others? I don't see any other hands up. We'll move forward then. The next presentation. We'll now move to our main presentation. And Nicholas is going to post something. Nicholas Pears, Apple User Group, excuse me, appleusers.org. No, I'm way ahead of myself. I am sorry. Let me rewind. Joe, I know that you're standing in the wings. waiting for an introduction. The reason that the next presentation is on the list is because I felt it's very important as we talk about vendor presentations to get the perspective from a vendor who has done this a number of times. And Joe Kissel, who is the publisher of Take Control Books, has done probably 100 or more presentations to a variety of different user groups with a mixture of reactions that I've asked him to share honestly with us tonight. Now, just over the last month, for those of you who aren't well acquainted with Take Control, they've had 5 books come out, which was one on Slack, an update on Apple Mail, working at home, at least temporarily, one on Preview, and one on Zoom. Well, enough about this. Joe Kissel, you now have the floor. Welcome.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, and it's great to be here. In a moment, if it's possible, I'd like to share my screen just for a minute, so I'll let you set that up if that's possible. I want to say hello to everybody. I see so many familiar faces here.
Hi, Joe.
Hi, Maria. I mean, I recognize very many of you. I have spoken at your user groups, either in person or virtually. It's so nice to see Cheetah again. And you know, George, I know you guys, so this is great. I had no idea who all was going to be here, so nice to see everyone. For anyone who doesn't know me, first of all, shame on you because I'm pretty famous. So I took over running Take Control Books from Adam and Tanya Angst. Of course, the Angsts created Tidbits back in 1990, and they started doing Take Control Books in 2003. And I happened to be the author who wrote the very first Take Control book, Take Control of Upgrading to Panther. And I've been doing it ever since. And a few years ago, they decided they wanted to do something different with their time, so they sold Take Control Books to me. So I turned from being the author, just one of the authors, to being the publisher. So we do ebooks on tech topics, most of which are Apple focused. And you know, one thing I have noticed over the years, because as Tom says, I've done lots of user group presentations. So I only started keeping track in 2012, and since then I know I've done 80 of them. So
Wow.
certainly well over 100 altogether. I've spoken all over the country and in some other countries. One thing I've noticed is that user group members and Take Control Books customers are a very closely aligned group. It's really very much the same demographic and a lot of overlap. So I feel like I know this audience pretty well. And as I've said to many of you, and I've said lots of times, we love user groups. I have been a member of a few different user groups myself. And we want to do anything we can to support them as we have done from the beginning. So I would like to share my screen for just about 2 minutes. This is the world's shortest keynote presentation. It has exactly 1 slide. But I figured if I didn't show you, then somebody would say, what was that thing? So, so Tom, is it possible to enable screen sharing for me?
Actually, you should be able to do it. You're allowed to immediately.
Yeah, it says host disabled attendee screen sharing.
Really?
Yeah.
Tom, you have to make him a co-host.
You need to click on participants, Tom, and then select Joe, and then you can enable screen share.
Okay.
We do have a book on Zoom if you need help.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead. And
Sorry. That was a cheap shot. Okay. So this is what I wanted to show you. First of all, we are here. Now, you should know this, and you should copy down this code and make sure that all of your members know this too. This is a coupon code you can enter in our shopping cart when you're about to check out, where user group members can save 30% on any full price book. So we get a lot of people writing to us and saying, hey, I'm a MUG member. Can I get your discount code? And we're like, well, you might be a MUG member, but we don't know. Only you, the user group leaders, know that. So we rely on you to disseminate this information. So please share this among you can put it in newsletters, share it in your meetings, do whatever, make sure people know this. You, the user group leaders, also should be on our mailing list for MUG leaders, and you should have special accounts on our site that give you free copies of all of our books. So we want all of you to have one free copy of all of our books for review purposes or for promotional purposes. Obviously, we don't want you giving away all of our books, but we want you to have a copy for yourself so that you know what it is that we're doing and what they're like. If you aren't already on your mailing list, on our mailing list, which you would know because you would get a few emails from me per month, you should email me at this address and I can fix that for you. I want to make sure that you guys have copies of all of our books, and I want to make sure that you get announcements about our new releases. Okay, so that's all I wanted to show you. Now I will just go back to talking. So, you know, Tom said we're going to have some user group representatives talk about their experiences with vendors, and so we also wanted to hear from a successful vendor. And I was like, well, nah, that word's successful. I'm not sure that's really the first word that would come to my mind when it comes to user group presentations. But he said, it's okay, just be honest. So I'm going to be honest here for a few minutes. So I don't know how representative my views or experiences are of other vendors, but I just want to tell you kind of what it's been like for me. As I mentioned, I've done many user group presentations, some in person, many over Zoom or Skype or what have you. On a handful of occasions, user groups have offered me an honorarium, which of course I really appreciate. But the vast majority of those visits have been unpaid. And of course, I understand that most user groups have little or no budget for speakers. So the theory has always been, you know, we're going to do this for exposure, meaning we'll hopefully sell enough books as a result of our presentations to make it worth our time. So typically an author, it's often me, but other Take Control authors have done this too, will spend, you know, an hour talking about our latest book. We have lots of books on all kinds of Apple topics. Now, obviously, in a 45-minute, hour-long presentation, we can only cover a small fraction of any book's content. But we do what we can, and of course, we offer that coupon for 30% off any purchase from our site. But the focus of our presentation is always on one particular book. So I do a presentation, then in order to get an idea of how much that was worth to us financially, sometimes I'll wait a week or two, and then I'll go and look up, you know, how many times during that past week or two has that coupon code been used for that particular book. And most of the time, the number is somewhere between 0 and 2. Very occasionally, we get into the double digits. But if you take the amount of royalties an author would typically earn on the sale of one book at, you know, 30% discount, that's $4.85. Think about the time they take to prepare the talk, several hours, time to give the talk, the fact that all those hours they're spending on that, they can't be writing magazine articles or writing books or doing other things that will earn them an income. Basically, I want to say pretty much 100% of the time, authors end up losing money on user group presentations. So I calculate this out. If I sold 5 copies, which again, in my experience, is an unusually high number, $15 book, 30% off, my net income as an author would be $24.26. Now, if I spent, let's say, 3 hours preparing the talk and an hour giving it, I will have earned $6.07 for that, you know, per hour for that amount of my time, which is, you know, less than half of minimum wage here in California. Now, to be sure, there are residual sales too. Now, maybe over the course of the next year, members of that group will collectively buy another 10 or 20 books. That absolutely helps. Plus, we sell a fair number of copies just based on the, you know, the user group discount that Tom showed you earlier, that's in the monthly mailings. Stuff that we send out to user group members, stuff that you guys send out. Sometimes you forward the emails we send, or you send your own emails about those books. But even when you add all that stuff up together, we don't really sell that many books to user group members. So I looked up our stats. For the month of June, we had 24 so far, you know, half the month. We've had 24 uses of that coupon code. Now, some of these have been orders for more than one book. So it's not 24 books sold, but 24 orders that use that coupon. But that's out of 1,757 orders. So that's 1.4%. In May, we had 40 uses out of 2,341 orders, or 1.7%. So it's not nothing, but honestly, in terms of our overall sales, user groups are like barely a blip. And in terms of how valuable an author's time is in giving one of these talks, it's a hard sell for me to convince them to do this. And I've had authors tell me, look, they're just not going to do them anymore because they can't make a financial case for it, and I don't blame them. Now, a thought, we're giving presentations and we're actually trying to be helpful and impart useful information. We might bookend our presentations with a sales pitch, but we're not just saying, hi, here's what our product does, you know, go buy it. We're essentially giving away a good portion of our product, which is information. So I think what happens a lot of the time is people will listen to our talks and go, okay, well, that was interesting, but now I know enough about this topic, so I don't need to buy the book. Now, we're not into clickbait or whatever the user group presentation equivalent is. I don't want to just tease you for an hour to get you to buy a book. I want to educate you, but the downside is that by doing that, I make our product less valuable. Now, the thing is, I enjoy the experience of talking to user groups. It's super useful for me to learn what kinds of questions and problems people have, because then I can go and create books to help answer those questions and solve those problems. And I just like interacting with friendly, intelligent, thoughtful, and good-looking people. So, you know, for me, it kind of defies logic financially, but I like to keep doing them. I did a presentation for a user group a couple of weeks ago. I have another one scheduled for Saturday, but really I'm doing it because I have longstanding relationships with user group leaders, and I know how hard it is to get interesting speakers, and I'm trying to do them a favor. I would love it if it actually helped our business in a more significant way. So that's what I have to say. Though I would love to hear your thoughts from your perspective. What could we do differently or better to offer a service that's just as valuable to you, but hopefully have it be worth more to us?
I'd like to start if I could.
Go ahead,
David.
How you doing, Joe? And you have spoken at our group before, and we really appreciate it. I can't thank you enough for what you provide to the user groups for all these years, because I've always valued Take Control books. I've always promoted them. I promote them on my podcast. I mean, I'm a big supporter of you and your product. And it is kind of a shame. And I kind of wondered about this while in the user group community. Are we really doing a good job supporting you? And it's obviously it's not the case. And I think we have to do a better job of advertising more for you, sending out our email blasts, making sure we're always talking about you as a particular vendor, because I think of all the vendors that we have on this list, I think you're probably one of the bigger ones that support us, and we appreciate that. And I think that's where I felt, and I was glad to see you on here, because I wanted to make sure I voiced my opinions and my thoughts of what you provide for us, because I can't tell you how many times I've found value in your books and being able to help our members understand what Apple's all about and what we do. I mean, the Zoom book was great because we started using Zoom and we started advertising. Okay, let's grab this book. It's a great book, and Glenn's a great author. So check that out. So I think all of us here collectively probably need to do a much better job of providing that type of support by, shame on me. I should be putting it in my email blast every time, because I think it's important that we support you guys and any of the vendors. But I mean, I think of all the vendors we have, I know you've always been the one that's been here supporting us. And we're overdue to have you come speak at our group too.
Awesome. Send me an email.
I will.
Anyone else? Yes, George.
Yes, George. Yes, Joe, I'd like to talk about an experience that we had with you guys, if it's okay with you.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, good. Joe has spoke to our group a few times over the years, and the last time he spoke, I think the business was probably owned at that time by Adam, and we discussed this issue, back and forth. And I was in retailing my whole life, so I understand that time is worth money. And we made a deal. I think it was that the group guaranteed that we would sell 20 books, and if we didn't sell 20 books, we would make up the difference. As many of you know, in the last few weeks, I've invited you to a number of our meetings, and I can inundate you with mail. And what we did for that meeting is I promoted the hell out of that book, and pretty much let it be known that to our members that we had guaranteed 20 books, and I expected that we would sell about 50 books. Because we really wanted Joe to speak. It was an important subject. He always brings in, sometimes 100 people to our meeting when he speaks. And we sold, I think, 40-something books. And it took a lot of work. And you just got to get behind these guys and promote. And almost to the point where, let them understand that this is an honor to have Joe speak to you and your group. So please, don't forget to support, Take Control.
Thank you, George. I remember that. I don't remember which book it was, but I remember that that experience. And I think I must have been complaining to Adam at that point about, poor sales. And so he put that together. You have the advantage of having a pretty large and pretty enthusiastic user group. The one I spoke to a couple weeks ago, 8 people showed up. And so
I was one of them.
But I'm just saying, like, there are numerical challenges. Now, we had actually thought about formalizing what you just described and saying, okay, look, any user group anywhere who ever wants to have one of our authors speak, before we say, yes, we'll speak, you commit to buying X number of books. And exactly what you said, if we don't sell that many, then the user group's going to have to make up those numbers. We tested the waters with that once or twice. And as I recall, your group happened to be one of the rare success stories, but most user groups kind of said, no, we can't sign up for that. We don't have a budget. We can't guarantee that we'll be able to sell that many books. And so that idea kind of fizzled. Now, in theory, I would be willing to do something like that again in the future, but it's a little bit tricky for me because I want to approach user groups with open hands, not grabbing hands. I want this to be a fun, useful, joyful experience for everybody. And I feel like as soon as we say, look, we're laying down the law and you got to buy this number of things, then it kind of stops being fun. And I feel like that might, be more of a turnoff, and kind of work against us. I could be mistaken about that, but it could work if the group is large enough and sufficiently motivated, and if it's promoted and all that. But as you said, George, it does take a lot of work to get to that level of sales.
Eckert, you had a question? You're muted.
Yeah, I mean, George and I, we belong to the same organization here in Naples, Florida. So he articulated most of the thoughts that I was going to say. But I have some more sophisticated philosophical remarks, because as the question really is, in my opinion, as to the degree that the membership in MUGs diminishes, probably similarly the sales of Take Control books made is diminishing as well. And the underlying question then is why? And to me, the reason why is several. One, the general knowledge regarding our business, our issues, is spreading, is getting better. Also, the people who move from a certain age group to that age group that is primarily the source of these mugs, the people who now move into this age category are more knowledgeable regarding Apple devices than the original groups that formed mugs. So that's really an issue.
Mm-hmm.
And in my opinion, there's definitely room for education, for spreading knowledge, but the underlying question, to me, the question is, should those tutors who create tutorials, who take controls book or other 1-hour tutorials, should they not take a look at their approach? I feel right now that Zoom has taken such a strong stance that all of a sudden real life has become, again, an issue. Real time has become an issue. And those people who possess so much knowledge, as you, Joe, do, if people can use you as a source to obtain a real-time solution, I think they would be willing to pay something for that, but it would require a change of your own approach towards your own business. Those are just some philosophical remarks, and I just wanted to share them with you. But I'm thinking of two of our very important members of our own organization. Both are certified Naples technicians here in the Southwest Florida issue. What do? They travel to customers. It takes them an hour, 45 minutes to get their location, and they help people out. What if they would establish a Zoom connection with these potential customers? These Zoom customers buy a ticket. They buy 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 25 minutes of the specialist time. And through Zoom, through accessing the computer, the Apple specialist can resolve the problem in real time without having to travel. These are just thoughts.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to share them with you because I think that's the way we need to consider going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Eckert. And I will be hopefully talking with you and George more in the near future about this.
Maria has.
So you're, sorry?
Maria has a question.
I do. Are you finished? Are you finished?
Could I just respond to Eckert briefly?
Go ahead.
So you are correct about the demographics of user groups. Some of the older members are mysteriously disappearing for one reason or another. And younger people are not joining in large numbers. And partly that is because, as you implied, younger people are more used to just, finding their answer on Google or YouTube or whatever, not so interested in all the other stuff. Our sales are okay. I was concerned for a while that they were dipping for the same reason that user group attendance is dipping. That seems to be less the case right now, but it's still true that is an overall worry because people do have acquired different habits of getting information. Now, we've talked about some of the things that you mentioned. We've talked about doing live interactive webinars or whatever. We've talked about doing video courses. We've talked about maybe doing some kind of like a podcast that's a live call-in show, or I don't know. We're batting around all kinds of ideas. The basic model that we're following is that all of us authors have been those people that people email constantly with their specific tech support problems. And although we love to help people, it's really, really time consuming. So we feel like, well, instead of helping, a person individually for an hour and then another person individually for an hour, let's write a book. We put all this knowledge together and we can help thousands of people all at once. Now, we're still going to have people with individual problems, and there will be people for whom books just aren't the right way to learn something. They would rather learn by video, or they would rather learn through discussion, or whatever the case may be. So yes, we are definitely talking about additional ways that we can put information together for people. Might take us a little while to get to the next phase, but we're certainly talking about it.
Joe, I think that we have a couple of presenters following you who can give you some ideas on things that would work. Dave is one of them. Our next one is Nicholas. I hope that you will be able to stay on for the next hour to participate in our further discussion.
Unfortunately, I have family obligations. I'm very sorry. I have to go and take care of my kids. But if you're able to send me a link to a recording afterwards, I would love to hear what they had to say. And I have noticed, even as we've been speaking, I've gotten at least 3 emails from participants here asking to be added to our list. So I will make that happen later this evening.
Thank you, Joe. George, you have a quick
Thank you,
question?
Joe.
Yeah, I have a quick question to Joe. If your user group business is shrinking, what business of yours is increasing?
Well, we did that. Ironically, this pandemic has been a little helpful to us. People have been in our, people have been stuck at home with not a whole lot to do, and so like, hey, I think I'll read some books. Glenn Fleischman decided to write a book, as I guess it was Tom mentioned earlier, on working from home temporarily, and to make it free. And I mean, he just volunteered to do this. So I'm like, you're volunteering to write a free book, how can I say no? So we put out this book, and I mean, tens of thousands of people just descended on it. I mean, our server kept crashing. We had to move to a more powerful server because like everybody wanted this book. Okay, well, we added a lot of names to our mailing list that way. And then a month or 2 later, we could say, hey, would you like a book on Zoom? And so that kind of thing has helped us to grow our audience. Obviously, this is not like a strategy you can duplicate, or that I recommend in general. Yeah, start a pandemic and that'll juice your sales. But just sort of accidentally that happened. So what happens is that once we get a little toehold in a new audience, for example, an author named Rosemary Orchard wrote a book on Shortcuts, the iOS automation app. And Rosemary had a huge mailing list of her own because she had written other automation stuff before. And so she said, hey, everybody on that mailing list, let me tell you about my new book. And so like, oh, well, we hadn't heard of Take Control books, but let's come here and buy it. And again, like, because of that, we were able to expand our mailing list. So we're always looking for ways that we can get the word out to more people. Advertising has not been very effective for us. It just isn't very cost effective. But when we can, we do things that add people like that, and then hopefully we can tell them about future books.
Maria,
Rosemary.
Very
Rosemary.
briefly, I've been waiting.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Sorry,
Go
Maria.
ahead.
That's okay. That's okay. Just wanna thank Joe for being here tonight. And Joe, we had you for the mainline Macintosh users group.
I remember it well.
Remember that visit? It was wonderful. And it's always what we propose. So we don't want you to spend a dime if you would come and do a presentation for us. And what allowed us to do that is that we don't pay rent where we meet anymore. So it allowed us to accumulate some funds to be able to get you down there. But everybody loved you. I don't have very much to say how you can expand your business other than to say the bulletin is really the main source for us. And I put it up every month as it comes out, and almost always you are there. So that is a reminder for them to, to buy the books. The only thing that I would, and also, we know you through Tanya and Adam, and it was through the Mac Worlds, and it's a very personal relationship, that we have with all of you and the leaders of all the mugs, because We wanted to meet you. We wanted to promote your products. We wanted to get, you know, to be in there with you and evangelize Apple. The one thing though that I really experienced that maybe you don't want it to happen again. I certainly don't want it to happen again, but my subscription somehow got dropped. I don't know if I changed credit card. I don't know exactly what happened. I mean, it could have been a bunch of things. It could have gone into junk mail or whatever, but I have been a proud customer of Control Books for a long, long time, you know, with even as far back as Tanya and Adam. So I don't know what happened. We did get it all straightened out, but you know, life has a lot of things. So I was preoccupied with a lot of things until one night I thought, you know what? I haven't seen anything from Tidbits or Control Books or anybody. So anyway, but I did get it straightened out because of course I could email you directly and you would respond. Also, for the free book, I didn't know about that either. I knew before that, but it's been a while since I've been part of it. I will email you and make sure that I get back on that.
Okay.
So I guess what I'm trying to say, how can we prevent that from happening? I don't know if other people experienced it as well, or it was just me. I'll get paranoid.
Let's see. Thank you, Maria.
Thank you.
Joe, any final thoughts?
So to answer Maria, I don't know what happened. Obviously, we would like for nobody to ever be dropped from our list. You know, we maybe need to make sacrifices to the correct internet gods. I don't know. But my inbox is always open. So those of you who have ever emailed me probably know that I respond pretty promptly, and I love solving problems. That's what I do. So email me if you need me to do anything. So those of you who have, I'm not good at multitasking, so I've tried to answer some of you in the chat, and I know that in addition to the chat, a few of you have emailed me, so I will get back to you later tonight or tomorrow about the mailing list. I'm sorry that I can't stick around. It has been a pleasure. I would very much like to watch the rest of this later, but I have to go do some family stuff now. So thank you very much for your kind attention, for having me.
Thank you, Joe. This is being recorded and you will get the link tomorrow.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.
Later. Thank you. Well, now let's move on to user group perspectives as part of our main presentation. And as we do this, I'm going to turn the screen over to Nicholas. He has an opening. Actually, there we go. Nicholas Pierce with AppleUsers.org. He's the founder and publisher of the Australian group. He's based out of Melbourne, Australia. And he has an extensive presentation to be able to share with us about presenters. So, Nicholas, I turn it over to you. I don't hear anything. There we go.
Okay, am I unmuted?
You're unmuted.
Excellent.
I hear you.
Hi everyone, my name's Nicholas Pires. I've been involved with Apple user groups now for far too long, probably 30 plus years. And in that time, I've organized a number of different presentations for a couple of different user groups, one of them being Awesome, which is Australia's and sometimes the world's largest user group. And finding presenters has been difficult. So I've developed some thoughts and ideas on how we can find presenters, and there's a whole series of articles which I'll cover later on interacting with those dealers and presenters. So one of the questions that we now have to ask straight up, rather than this would have originally been in later in the presentation 6 months ago, but now we need to decide how are we doing presentations before we even think about getting someone to come and present. Are we doing it in person or are we doing it via a video link? So in person, it's the way we've always done it, and it still works very, very well. And I think there's opportunities to continue moving forward with that. But technology has also changed, and the way that people view the way that they can interact with other people has changed dramatically. 6 months ago, most people out in the wide world didn't do much video conferencing. They may do a little bit of FaceTiming or Skyping with their relatives overseas or in the next state or whatever, but they weren't looking at using it as a serious presentation tool. That's totally changed with COVID-19. We now take this as granted. The fact that this group here is now meeting online, we probably wouldn't have thought of a year ago. So it's changed dramatically in what we're doing. So do we go to all video presentations or do we do in person? My answer is we can do a mixture of both. One of the things that Mac user groups' greatest strengths for is actually the personal interaction, getting out and socializing. I work from home in my daytime job, so nothing's changed much from the COVID-19 situation. But the social aspect, physically getting out and meeting people, is something that I am missing. And one of the reasons why people come to Mac user groups is to learn stuff. The other reason is to meet with like-minded people on topics that they're interested in. So I still think user groups have a role to continue to play, and physical meetings still have a role to play. But the advantage is with new technology, we can now bring in presenters that you wouldn't normally be able to do. I'm down in Australia, okay? It's 11 o'clock on Tuesday here. I know it's, well, it's now probably closer to midday. For you guys in the US, it's about 9 o'clock at night in one time zone a little bit. So trying to get me to come and present to you in the US would have been cost prohibitive. It's very, very simple for me to do it now. And we need to look at that when we're getting presenters in. We can now change the way we're doing stuff. And we can get anyone in, whether it's me, Joe, or anyone in this group could present to a user group. So look at now incorporating both. Have a physical presenter, have video presenters. My suggestion also is have multiple contact methods if you're getting a video presenter. Have their telephone number handy. Have their iMessage ID handy. Have their next door neighbor's contact details if they're working from home. So if something fails and you can't connect, you can still get in touch with them. Also have a different presentation device ready. If you're planning on doing this via Zoom and something goes wrong, the Zoom server suddenly fall over, be prepared to switch over to Skype or to FaceTime or something like that. Just be prepared to have fallback positions. Likewise, even if you've organized a presenter for a video chat, have someone in your live audience prepared with a backup presentation. It may not be the same topic, but if something goes drastically wrong and someone can't make the video chat or your internet connection goes down, you're not wasting the night. Someone's there with a presentation. And if they don't use it that night, not a drama, you've got a presenter ready for next month. All right, so now what I'll do is go through some of the places where you can find presenters. The first place these days to look, and I wish I had this 10, 15 years ago when I was looking for presenters, the App Store for both Mac and iOS. There are thousands, if not millions, of presenters out there, or app developers who don't have a big marketing budget. They can't take out full page ads in magazines or on television or even afford a booth at a trade show or anything like that. They're really looking to get coverage. So have a look at what's on the App Store, what are the popular applications, and even your favorite applications. Contact them, see whether they're prepared to do a presentation. As Joe just said, it may not be 100% economical for them. They may not get a huge increase of sales, but if you record these presentations and make them available on your website, the app developer can then point to them, which helps promote your mug, and they can get some more exposure that way, and hopefully goes a little bit viral for them. So they're also, as I'm saying, ideal for video presenters. They can just sit in front of their computer like we're doing now, and they can present to your group. You set up a big screen in the room, some speakers, they talk to the audience, and you can work out different ways of how you handle the question and answer side of it. But there are thousands of potential presenters there for you, just in the App Store alone. The other area to look at is podcasts and YouTubes. There are billions, it seems, of tech and Apple related podcasts out there. All those people know how to do video chat. It's what they're doing. So look at inviting them to talk to your group on a particular topic. You can also use the podcasts and the YouTube channels to get ideas for your own presentation topics. Mac Voices is a classic example for that. There's all sorts of different topics there. Just literally search the podcast app or YouTube, iTunes if you're doing an earlier OS, and YouTube for Apple, iPhone, iPad, technology. There's plenty of things out there. The other thing you can do is you can use snippets or the entire episode to do a presentation. You can sit there, watch it, then have someone answer some questions. You can pause and you can insert your own commentary in the middle of the podcast, then start the session again, have a little bit of an in-house discussion, do another section. The other thing that's great is Apple's keynotes are available as podcasts. You can download them, they can be offline. Every time Apple releases a new product, we all go and watch those keynotes, I'm sure, but do all our members go and do it. So again, they're another good opportunity to have a presentation. You can stop it at the end of each section. You can talk about a little bit more. You can go and investigate the Apple website for more information. As you know, the keynotes is the highlights of the product, but there's more information on Apple's website and on the Apple Sales Web, and I'll cover that in a moment. So you can talk more about it. So you've suddenly got 3 or 4 topics that you can do with just based on what comes out of a keynote. Another group of people to contact are authors, experts, and specialists. We've just spoken to Joe. So he's an author and an expert, a great source of potential presenters for you. The Apple User Group Resources website also has a number of articles and presentation ideas listed there that you can use to get your own ideas for presentations and potential presenters. As I said, we've discussed Take Control books, and Tidbits is another one. There's some interesting articles that come through every week there. Some great ideas for potential presenters for you. The one that I used to use very much in the day because it was very prevalent and not so much so now, but they still exist, is industry magazines. Look at the articles, so the feature articles that have been written, but also look at those tiny little ads throughout the magazine. The little ads are often the ones that don't have the huge budgets, And again, like the App Store developers, they're looking for exposure. They've taken a risk, put a tiny little ad in there, and that you may or may not see it. As a user group leader, you should be reading all of those ads and looking at potential presenters for you and contact them. Say you saw them in Macworld or whichever magazine it was. You saw the little ad on page 27 and you think that your members would be interested in hearing from them. So that's a good place. Look at the Apple-focused magazines. There used to be dozens of them years ago. There's only a handful of them now, but they're available in Apple News, the app on the Mac and iPad, or at your local news agent. So being Apple specific, the topics are going to be of interest to you. That said, look wider. The Mac is now becoming, or has become, a very dominant force again in the computer industry, and what works for us works in other fields. Likewise, their technology now interacts a lot better in this day and age than when I was doing this 15, 20 years ago, where Mac hardware was quite specific. If you wanted a webcam, you had to get a Mac specific one. Now, virtually any USB webcam will work, as an example. So look at what the rest of the IT industry is doing. Also, I think really, really different. Look at travel, lifestyle, entertainment, photography, video, all sorts of other magazines. One example that I give is I've become very much addicted to cruising on cruise ships. Yes, I understand all the issues with pandemics, particularly here in Australia, but I still enjoy cruising as a way to travel. I subscribe to a lot of Facebook groups to do with cruising, and a topic that regularly comes up is, how do I stay in touch with my family while I'm cruising? Well, there's a topic for a user group meeting. You can talk about how you won't necessarily do it for cruising, but it could be for traveling generally. Here in Australia, a lot of grey nomads travel around Australia by caravan. I'm sure Americans and Europeans do the same. So often they're looking for Wi-Fi hotspots. How do you find them? What's the best way of keeping yourself secure while you're using these free hotspots? A couple of topics there ready for you to go. So look at ways that other interests can make a presentation for your user group. Another fantastic resource is the Apple Sales website. Your Apple ambassador has access to it. They're the only member of your user group that can access it, but they can make the presentations and the slides that are available there to other members of your group to be able to give a presentation. It's always up-to-date information on the current products that Apple have. So in a couple of weeks' time after Worldwide Developers Conference, there'll be a whole slew, I hope, of new product announcements, and there'll be presentations ready to go. They're designed by Apple. They have all the information that you need. There are speaker notes that are available with them. All you need is a couple of hours to sit and read the notes that are provided, go through the presentation, and you've suddenly got a whole lot of different topics based on what Apple has just recently announced. And that's what a lot of our members want to hear about, is the latest information directly from Apple. The other thing that you get from the Apple Sales website is the channel asset kits. They give you copy blocks and images. It's basically a marketing blurb that you can use to help promote. It's promoting Apple's products, but you can reword some of the stuff for your own marketing material and encourage people to come along to your presentations. We can probably do an entire presentation and discussion in our forum here on accessing the Apple Sales Web and things like that. So that's an entire other topic. To become the ambassador, someone just asked the question, you basically need to register with it, and I'll get Sandy to explain that after my presentation, or we can do an entire topic on that later. The other thing to look at is what's known as a presentation in the box. Many vendors have pre-prepared presentations. particularly back in the day when we didn't have video conferencing. They would put together a set of slides either in PowerPoint, Keynote, or as graphics, and they would send that out along with speaker notes and some extra information. They would include a not for sale copy of the product so you can demonstrate it. They'd often include giveaways and door prizes, and they'd include printed flyers, often with a discount code. Some vendors still do this, but now with video conferencing, it's becoming less common, but it doesn't hurt to ask if they've got something like that ready to go. The other source, hang on one sec. The other source of presenters are your own members, okay? We've just talked about the Upper Sales website and presentation in the box. With them, they're looking at your members presenting, but don't have it being just your president or meeting coordinator giving the presentation. Ask someone else in the group to do it. With it all pre-prepared, a lot of people get frightened thinking they have to create a whole lot of slides to do a presentation. Look at Joe's presentation that he just did before this session. One slide with 4 bullet points on it. Not hard. So you don't have to have a full-blown presentation like I've done here, or you can get one that's pre-prepared, and all you literally have to do is just read some material beforehand and know that material, and then just talk about it with the slides as your prompt as you go. The other thing you can do is a shootout style presentation. This is great for a number of short presentations back to back. We started off at Awesome with this idea many, many moons ago, and it started off as a single presentation. It was to show how different apps could do the same thing. So in our case, it was design a promotional flyer. I did a presentation on how to use Pages, and Pages was like version 1 at the time of that, but someone did it in InDesign, someone did it in Photoshop. We each had 15 minutes to talk about it, and we were talking about the application we liked ourselves, so we knew our product quite well. So I use Pages and still do to do all my flyers and things like that. I couldn't use Photoshop or InDesign if you paid me to do it at the moment. It's not an application I've never done. So I was quite comfortable talking about Pages. The others were quite comfortable. And only being a 15-minute presentation, it's not overly onerous on someone doing that. And having a couple of people to bounce off up there, everyone's not just staring at one person. You often have a table set up with 2 or 3 of you sitting there. It makes some people feel a little bit more comfortable. You can also look at getting members to present a 5 to 10 minute presentation about their favorite anything, okay? I've seen it done with your favorite app from the App Store, your favorite game, your favorite podcast. It could be your favorite anything. It's 5 to 10 minutes, and it can be used as a filler in between a couple of main presentations if you want to, or just fill the evening with a whole lot of different people presenting. That can be quite entertaining in its own right. In fact, you can have some fun with this. You can have 2 hats handy. You can place your member's name in there, and it can also be used as your raffle draw at the end of the night. And then you can put some favorite topics into another hat. You draw a member's name out, and then they come up and draw a topic out. So you could have the apps, games, podcast, website. Now, if you're really cruel, you give them 5 minutes to think about what they're going to talk about. And then they can talk about it for 5-10 minutes. Or you can give them until next month, and they can have a longer session, whether it's 15-minute, half hour, or the full presentation. That can be a unique way of getting different people up talking about different things. The other thing that I'll say about user group members is never underestimate a beginner. They're learning, and even though they may not feel comfortable presenting, they're new to the product. They're looking at things with a brand new outlook, that things we take for granted as experts, aren't looking at. And I'll go back to a very long time ago, my Apple II days. I used the original text-based AppleWorks application, and there was no graphic user interface in there. It was all text. And the commands to bold a word was open Apple O, plus B, return, escape, type the word, then open Apple O, minus B to stop bolding, return, escape, and my word was bolded. And I'm going through this, explaining this to a group. This is how you bold, this is how you underline. And a new member puts their hand up and goes, why are you doing it such a complicated way? And I said, well, that's the way you do it. I said, but I just read in the manual. You press Control B at the beginning of the word, type your word, Control B at the end of it. It was something that had been added to a new version of AppleWorks, and it wasn't there in the version that I first started using. I never picked up on it. So a beginner taught me something. And the beginners, as I said, look at things differently. Back in the days of the Apple II AppleWorks, there were printed manuals, and this woman had actually read the manual from cover to cover, the 1,000-odd pages it was. These days, those manuals aren't there, but they're experimenting and learning. So get your beginners to get up and talk about things as well. Even if they're not 100% comfortable, they will get more comfortable as they do it. And as they see other people do it for the first time, they'll say, hey, I know about that topic. I can talk for 15 minutes on that. And once they're comfortable doing the shorter presentations, they'll start looking at doing longer presentations for you. So you're not relying on just one or two people giving presentations. All your members are quite capable of giving presentations. All right, where else to look for presenters and presentation ideas? Other user groups, okay? We all run into the same problems. Go and look at their websites, okay? Have a look at what they're presenting. Have a look and see whether they've got something that they can present to you. They've already presented to their own members, so they don't have to create a brand new presentation. They're just giving it to a new audience, okay? So that can save a lot of time and effort for you. In this day and age with video conferencing, very easy to get them involved. So invite them to present to your user group. Or just look at them for ideas for your own members to present. And look at the Mug Center calendar. Chuck Joyner puts that out every week. And it shows what different user groups around the world are doing. To answer people's questions about the keynotes, the slides are available on the web, and I'll explain that later on. So also look at the PC user groups. They still exist out there as well. They can present to your members as well. Often a lot of topics are cross-platform. You can also go and present to them. Just because they're using a slightly different operating system doesn't mean that some of the stuff is that much different. Zoom is pretty much the same, whether you're using it on a Mac or a PC or on an iPad. So some topics can be cross-platform. Explaining how to use Zoom as one potential topic.
Nicholas?
Yes.
George has a quick question.
Yes.
George, unmute.
Sorry, I didn't unmute. Nicholas, great presentation. I agree with everything you've said. And that's what I've done for the last 12 years is I've searched every corner of the world for speakers. A couple things, local businesses I have found that our Apple users can be very helpful in presentations. Local tech people. We've gotten a couple of these people to join our techs in the area have joined our group, and they're outstanding presenters, and we encourage our group to utilize them. Photographers. I think I was just talking to one of the user groups in England, and there's a lot of photographers that are usually in our groups or associated with our groups that can be found. And many of our own people. I mean, it's amazing when you throw out the bone to some of your users, what they come up with. We had one on hearing aids. You know,
Yep.
that's a very, very important subject today. I mean, it goes on and on and on. There's a lot of expertise within your own groups.
Yep, no, I
And
agree
tutorial,
wholeheartedly with that.
and then tutorial, like Joe, there's Dan from Noteboom, there's Izzy from Izzy Videos, and the list goes on and on. These guys will do great presentations also.
Do you want to send Tom some of the links to those people, so when he sends stuff out tomorrow, there's some more suggestions there as well?
Certainly. Yes. Yeah, the anything that any links that people post on chat or send to me privately, I will compile and go into the report that goes out tomorrow along with the recording.
All right. Another source of potential presenters for you are other community groups like Lions, Rotary and Probus, and charity groups. You may get them in only to do a 5, 10, 15-minute presentation, and it may not be 100% related to your user group, but it's helping build relationships in the community. They often have little projects that they want to talk about. They may invite you in return to come and talk to their meeting, whether it's about Apple stuff or other things in general. So it's not only finding a source of presenters for you, it's also providing some different opportunities to network that you may not have done previously. So yeah, it's just an interesting way of breaking it up and just creating relationships in the wider community, and we all need that these days. Another source of potential presenters is a website called PR Mac. I used to use these religiously back in the days when I was producing a magazine for Apple users. We would announce that it was there. They're still around and they're still putting out a lot of press releases on behalf of other organizations. And these are, again, often small developers, and some of them are long-term. Like I noticed, I was having a look at the website the other day, that Graphic Inverter is still promoting through this. Graphic Inverter is an application we've used for decades. They still put out there that they've got a new version. So sign up for it. It's free of charge to receive the press releases. Each release includes a direct name and an email address, so you know exactly where to go to contact with some of these smaller organizations. You can also use them for putting out your own press releases, promoting your meetings, things like that. All right, another thing for presenters is visit another venue, okay? Don't do the same thing month in, month out. Do something different at least once a year and go somewhere else. It's a way of getting another presenter because you're going somewhere. You might want to do a behind the scenes tour. A lot of Apple stores will do this. It depends on the local manager, but people are interested. What happens when they go out behind the door to go and get your computer? What's out there? They may do a couple of little training sessions specifically for your user group. We were discussing before some of the local tech businesses. Look at museums, art galleries, performing arts centers, schools, that sort of thing. Those who use Apple equipment on how they can actually, use it. They would often love to show this stuff off to you. There's another Australian user group called AWUGU. They do some really amazing things. They've gone to Telstra's one of our biggest telecommunications providers in this country. They did a tour of one of their locations and saw a Cisco CRS1 core network router that operates at 92 terabytes. It controls half the traffic that happened in the city of Melbourne. So it's an interesting topic to see. Not everyone gets to see that on a daily basis. It's a presentation you don't have to worry about. You basically tell your members, meet at such a location, at such a time, we'll be let in and will be given a guided tour. They have a very good relationship with Museum Victoria, the state museum in Victoria, and there's a collection of Apple history there. They've had a number of presentations there. The user group themselves hasn't had to do anything. Again, just tell their members to turn up. So a very, very simple concept for doing something different. Visit someone else and get them to do the presentation. That could also be visit another user group. So Joe before was saying that user group numbers can be quite low. If you want a big name, join a couple of groups together. So if you meet on the first Wednesday and someone else meets on the first Friday, look at 1 month you're all meeting on the first Wednesday. And rather than having a couple of dozen people, try and get 50 or 100 people together in a venue, and you've got a better chance of getting some presenters coming in. All right, any questions that anyone else has got at the moment? I know time's getting on, so we'll try and do a couple.
I don't see any hands up. Am I missing anyone? Yes, Carol.
How many meetings a month do you have?
Awesome now has, I think, 4 meetings. Ivan might want to step in here and say a bit more, because I've now moved away from Melbourne, so I don't get along to the meetings. But when I was doing meetings for Awesome, we had the retirees and others, the multimedia group, which I ran, and we did 2 presentations a night for that. And their main Saturday meeting, they've got probably between 12 and 20 special interest groups. And then there's another group that meets remotely in another town about an hour out of Melbourne. And they do a couple of presentations as well. So when I was doing it, I could be doing 5, 6 presentations a month just for one user group. Depending on what special interest groups I was presenting to and things like that. But most groups, I'm assuming, have 1 meeting with 1 or 2 guest presenters.
Any other questions? Seeing none, Nicholas, thank you very much. We'll probably have more questions later, but we have a timing problem, so.
Yep. So just a couple of quick things. There's an entire series of articles that I've written on dealing with presenters. They're available up on the AWUGU's website. Those links will be given out later. Likewise, ideas for presentations, how to find the user group resources, the Apple Sales Web, and PR Mac. And that's it. I'm done.
Nicholas, good job. Thank you. This slideshow and resource information from Nicholas will be available in the report that goes out tomorrow. We've done a good job. And now we'd like to move on to our next presenter. This is a man I met about 6 years ago at Mac Stock. He has a very strong presence at suburban Chicago users group. And Dave, I'm gonna turn it over to you because I know that you're going to have to leave soon, but you now have the screen.
Okay, I'm not doing a presentation because, boy, Nicholas, that was an amazing job. You've got all the bases covered and then some. I read through your presentation ahead of time, and I was like, wow, I can't even come close. So we really appreciate all the information. I just wanted to bring some of the emphasis of what I see and my successes with our group and some of our challenges. We currently just have just transitioned over to a new programs coordinator, so we're going to be a little bit of a challenge to get going with that, but I'm confident we have a strong person that's going to be has taken that over and help us move along with getting more and more good presenters, because he's got a little more of a technology background. Our previous programs coordinator was a wonderful person, is a wonderful person, I should say, and but she didn't have as much technical knowledge. So I think that's going to help us a little bit. Creating relationships. I think that's a big thing. Now, with me being a podcaster, and I'm talking to a lot of people trying to come onto my podcast, I've really have established a lot of great relationships with many of the people in the Apple community. As you mentioned, Chuck Joyner, I'm very good friends with him, and he's been such a strong supporter of Apple user groups over the years, which he's just amazing for all of us. And really the other thing too is try to really work towards bringing really good content to the group. And I've already had another number of invites for Ishida that's speaking at our group on Saturday, and I'm really thrilled to see that, and I appreciate that. I know Ishida appreciates it as well. And I'm looking forward to for her to speak at our group this coming Saturday, and it's going to be a lot of fun. And any of you here like to join, feel free to, if you hadn't already, send me an email, and I'll see if I can get you in. We're obviously at 100 member limit there, but I don't foresee us going that high. But I really appreciate that part of it. But and as far as the vendors go. At the beginning, when Joe came on, I knew when I said he has been probably one of the biggest supporters, him and Adam and Tanya before him. Take Control Books is probably one of the most amazing vendors that we have. I haven't seen a lot of activity with the other vendors that we have on the list. I know there's a really long list, and we're much appreciated with having those folks. Folks like 1Password. We mentioned Jeff Gamet. I think that's a person we definitely should be reaching out to for Smile Software. I think many of us on this call have had someone from Smile come on at one point or another to talk about their products. They're always very supportive of Apple user groups. But that's really, I just wanted to add a short discussion here and really all those things together and what Nicholas has talked about. I think it's great. And as I said, as I've been in this meeting the last 3 times now, I really enjoy being here with all of you. Glad to finally have met many of you. And I would hope that we all stay in touch. And as George knows, and some of the others that are here, I've enjoyed jumping on some of your meetings. And I think all of us in here sharing our resources and being supportive of each other. We're all here for one goal here is to have a very successful user group and to keep to keep driving towards having some great presentations and having a lot of fun too. And that's really what it's all about. And the membership will build as it goes, but having fun and providing good content, I think it's great. And this pandemic has obviously made it a lot more challenging, but I think it's really made us all step up even further with doing presentations over Zoom or Skype or however you do it, in our WebEx. And this gives even more of a challenge to come up with good content, and to do it remotely is always even more challenging. We've been doing meetings twice a month, and that was unheard of for us. We'd always do it once a month. So we've challenged ourselves to come up with some good content and to keep all of our users engaged and to keep them renewing, of course, too. So, but that's all I had, unless anybody has any questions of me.
Any questions for David? Carol.
What is Smile?
Smile Software makes Text Expander. They make PDF Pen, PDF Pen Pro. They've been around for a long time. They're big podcast supporters too. That you always hear them on podcasts. And another source of folks to reach out to are the top 3. They're all my friends: Allison Sheridan, Dave Hamilton, and Chuck Joyner. All 3 of those folks have been my inspiration at being a podcaster, and they're very supportive of Apple user groups. They've all spoken at groups one way or another. There's many others. Adam Christensen's another one. So if you have any thoughts of other podcasters that are out there, there's tons of them. As it was mentioned before, that all these podcasters are out there. Why not reach out to one of those podcasters and then see if they'll speak? No, ask me out. I might speak.
What about you?
I've spoken at many other groups in the past. So and I'm also doing a special interest group too. You talked about special interest groups. I've been doing an iPhone special interest groups probably for the last 10 years. and I've been continuing to do that, and it was very successful. I walked into our group, 11 years ago, and I had no experience at all doing this stuff, and then now this special interest group has gone really well, and we averaged 30. We had averaged about 30 people that would come show up, and we just sit around and talk about iPhone, iOS, and have fun, have a blast doing it. So,
good idea. Any other questions? David, once again, a good job. I appreciate it very, very much for
thank you.
your time. And as I
Appreciate it.
to Nicholas as well. But what about the rest of you? Now,
About signing off. Thank you, everybody.
yes, before I pursue that any further, I did want to rewind for a moment back to Martin's question about how do you become an ambassador? And Sandy, can you answer that? Sandy is unmuting.
I thought you were going to, yes, I thought you were going to answer that, Tom. Any group that is a registered Apple user group nominates one person from their group. They decide who the ambassador is. And then that ambassador gets access to ASW and some other things. So if you go to appleusergroupresources.com and click on the leaders link, I believe it will take you right to information about ambassadorship. And at some point, Tom, we may want to do an evening on the ambassador program because I think there's a lot of confusion about what it provides for groups and how one's selected.
I think you're right. We can do that. Okay, what about experiences the rest of you have had? Questions about vendor offers? What about vendor presentations? Questions you may have now thought of for Nicholas? David had to leave. Looking for a hand. Are you getting tired? Carol? Unmute, please. There
I
you go.
think this fits your question. I'm not sure, but one of the vendors that we've had at our group is the public library, coming and talking about what they have available in the way of connecting for audiobooks and more. So they're obviously easy to get and free.
That's a great idea. I like that one.
Good idea. George?
Yeah, I just want to say, anybody that wants to join the last meeting of June, the last Wednesday, we have exactly that person coming and talking. The librarian will review all of that. So you're all welcome.
Good idea.
You'll get an announcement from me.
Yeah.
Or 3, yeah.
Then there's Cheetah, who gets to run things at the beginning. No.
I'm sorry, what?
You, yeah. I'm just trying to get a reaction from you to see what you were going to say about presenters.
Oh, first thing I want to say is my name is Sheeta.
Cheetah.
She, like Chicago.
Chicago. Cheetah.
Sheeta, yes. I sort of don't have anything to say about presenters. Yes, I am tired.
You're in Michigan.
I am in Michigan and it's past my bedtime. So I appreciate you calling me. I'd like to pass on any response. Sorry.
You actually do introductions for the Colorado group, right?
No.
Oh.
I moderate for the Naples group. I'm a board member of the Naples group.
Okay, that's where I started there. Oh, wait a minute, I got mixed up with another one I saw. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's quite all right. I do the moderation. It helps, it actually helps with control and answering questions and audience response. Got some positive feedback on having a moderator.
Oh, yeah. George?
I just can't even express, there's not enough words to express how lucky we are to have Sheeta on our board and a member of our group, and what a fabulous presenter. One of the best out there. And that's how I actually found Sheeta. I was going through YouTube or something, and I found her tutorials, and I, found out where she was in Michigan and Detroit, and my kids lived up there, and that's how we got together.
So you're
originally.
Is that right?
Yes.
That is, yep.
Any comments from anyone else? Yes, Wendy? Was your hand up, Wendy? Oh, okay, it was not. I just saw you wave. Martin?
Can we put a transfer request in for Sheeta then? She sounds like exactly what our group in London needs.
I appreciate that. I'd be more than happy to do a presentation for your group.
That'd be fantastic. Lovely.
Okay.
Martin's in London.
Big thanks to Nicholas. That was really interesting. It's given us some ideas. We do struggle with presenters in our meetings, so there's some good ideas that I'll follow up on. Thank you, Nicholas.
As we're moving toward the end of the second hour, unless there's anything else anyone wants to say, I'm now going to raise the question of what about meeting topics for the future? One thing that was mentioned at the last meeting was having a nuts and bolts session of user group management. And we might be able to weave that ambassador description in with that as well, Sandy. How do you feel about doing a nuts and bolts session for July 20th? I see 1 thumbs up, 2 thumbs up. Everyone seems to be in agreement. Good. I'll be looking for presenters then as well. And so that will be our topic. Are there any other topics for later after that, or do you want to skip August? In fact, I've actually had someone contact me who could not come and said they have problems on Monday nights, wondered if we'd be willing to do it another night. How do the rest of you feel? You like Monday or you prefer another night?
One night's as good as any other for me. Well, it's morning for me here.
Indeed. What is it, 2 in the morning for you, Martin?
It's now 20 to 4, so it doesn't really matter what day of the week. I'll still be flat out in the morning.
I vote for no Wednesday nights.
Sheeta,
No
he's
Wednesday
tired.
nights.
Yes. Okay.
I think no matter what night you do it, it's a crapshoot for everybody. So you make it work if you can make it work, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Marty.
And the fact that we're recording the stuff means that people can catch up afterwards if they want to.
Right.
It is nice to be able to interact directly, but yeah, there are going to be times when someone can't make it whatever night we do it. So let's just promote the recordings for those people.
Yes. Joan, you're speaking, but we're not hearing you. You're still muted. For whatever reason, the microphone is not working. So go ahead and put something into chat if you can, Joan. Yeah.
Can you hear me now? No.
Oh, yes.
Oh, good. I changed the, never mind. I wouldn't mind it on a different Monday night because we have our SWACS meeting Monday afternoon. And let me tell you, I am zoomed out. Totally. But, you know, it is what it is. I wouldn't miss these meetings. These have been just meeting and hearing you guys and making the connection has been absolutely fantastic. And I really brought it back to the group. And it's been great. It's made a difference in our meetings. We're just starting the Zoom, which is why I haven't invited anyone, because I want to make sure that we're nice and smooth before I invite y'all. I'll speak Southern.
Thank you. And remember, I had shown you the Apple User Group's resource page. And if you are not getting the bulletin, then contact me and we'll make sure that we get you hooked up with it. And I'd also sent out an inquiry about a week ago about doing a survey in order to profile each of the participating user groups. And I got a little bit of feedback from two people. Actually, one person filled out the survey that I sent them, and the second one gave a few additional ideas. How do you feel about a survey? Thumbs up, thumbs down, don't care? Thumbs up? Survey good? Questions apparently were good enough to be able to pursue. We'll probably use, what is that, Monkey, something?
Survey Monkey.
Yeah, Survey Monkey, thank you. Thank you. We'll use that or some other survey instrument to actually formalize the questions. That brings us to the end of the agenda. Is there anything anyone else wants to talk about before we leave? I don't see any hands up. I do thank you once again for some of you. Oh, Martin, you had something?
Yeah, I just wanted, you were saying about other topics. I'd like to raise the topic of backups. We all used to do various different ways of backups, but things have changed dramatically now on the tech front. And I was wondering what systems other people are using. We had a question from a member at the last meeting. How do you do backups? What sort of backups? So I'd like to bring that up today. I think the last time we did it was about 5 years ago, and things have moved on since then. So if you want to have a topic, maybe you could think about that.
That's a good one. I've got it written down. Any others? Once again, I thank you, knowing that for some of you it's a very late hour, early in the morning for others. But for all of us, you're taking time away from your families, you're taking time away from other activities to devote and support your user groups. We appreciate that. For speaking on behalf of the Apple User Group Advisory Board, this has been an important venture. This is our third meeting. We will do it again next month, and we hope that you can participate then as well. I thank you so much, and I wish you good night.
Night.
Thank you, Tom.
Good night.
night.
Thank you.
Good night,
Thank you,
everyone.
Tom.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Night. Thanks a lot.
Take care. Stay safe.
Good night. Thank you. Stay safe.
Indeed. Nicholas, stay on for a moment, please.
Yep, I was going to do that. Do you want to turn the recording off?